Hello and welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast. Thank you for making it a part of your weekly routine. Our show is brought to you each week by our friends at Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree removal, or stump removal needs, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has you covered. In addition to their tree work, they can also haul rock and sand. They do driveway work and can now do horizontal grindings of large wood debris piles. Give Keith a call at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is the proud premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, sports administrators, and sports personalities. Thanks for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. Now here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello and welcome into this week's episode. Our show is available on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and several other social media platforms. If you're watching today on YouTube, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. Help us to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark. We've got a great show lined up for you today. My good friend Ty Kinslow joins us. Ty, I'm glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Tim. It's an honor to be here, and we certainly appreciate you having me on today.
Ty, I want to go back to you and I met probably in the 1980s when we were both students at Southland Academy. I remember you as a really good athlete amongst a lot of good athletes during that time at Southland. And I want to start by talking a little bit about your high school days as a player. So maybe mention some of your teammates, some of your coaches, but how did that time in your life define what you are now?
Well, I think, first of all, if you're an athlete, the high school or some of your most favorite times of your life, just getting to play, and you're playing for the fun of it, for the fun, for the love of the game, but also for your teammates and guys you've just grown up playing ball with in the backyard. And that's sort of how it was with us back in the 80s. I graduated in 1983 and was very fortunate to have a lot of really good athletes around me. Maybe you said good. I was probably just pretty good, but I had a lot of really good and talented guys around me, and we just had a lot of fun. Some of those guys a little bit older than me were Rick Davis and Mark Kopchus and Reese Smith and Andy Nelson. Lee Harris was not only a good player, but he also was a neighbor that we played in the backyard a lot. And then my age, guys that I graduated with, really close friends. Late Russ Carricker, one of my great friends who has passed away, had a lot of impact on my life and a lot of people. I actually played linebacker at Auburn University. And then, Daniel Lopez and Charles Ray Sheffield. And, we just had a lot of guys. Drew Daniel was another one that ended up at University of Tennessee, lives in Knoxville now, but a lot of really talented athletes who grew up together from kindergarten all the way through high school. Some of the guys behind me, Chuck Reeves is still a dear friend. We do a lot of hunting and fishing now, and our sons are close. And same way with Charles Ray Sheffield. And then, Greg Slacker was a great athlete, great running back. And Chet Summers, he played it all. There were a lot of guys behind us. One of the most talented basketball players ever come through Southland was Roger Hobgood, who was a grade below me. So we all played together. We all know which role we had. Some of them were better than others in other sports, and it just depended on, we knew which either one could do. We know all the strengths and negatives. And then the other things, we had a lot of great parents who supported the team, who wanted who wanted all the guys to play well and cheered everybody on, and great coaching staff. My dad was my head basketball coach, where we were fortunate enough to win the championship. And Dennis Hall was my head baseball coach, and we won the championship my senior year in that also. And And then in football, David Bailey was my head coach. Rodney Collins had also been there, and he left after my sophomore year, went to Stratford. But David Bailey had a huge influence on my life. And I always say to have successful teams, it's a three-legged stool. You got to have good players, you have good coaching, but you also got to have good parents. And parents who support the players and support the coaches. That's crucial in having that three-legged stool if you want to have a good team. But all those coaches had a great influence on me, and not just I just didn't see them on the playing field, but I saw them at church. Went to church with most of them, and just saw them not only on the field and courts, but every day in life in the community, and had a huge impact on me and made a difference in my life. And it's what ended up getting me into coaching. I didn't start there, but I ended up there.
Yeah, Ty, you talk about the impact that those folks had on you. I look back to when you and I kind of reconnected, and that was during the days that your son Banks was coming through the youth sports programs at the Sumter County Parks and Rec Department. And we were fortunate to get you to volunteer as a volunteer coach. And I know you had a lot of fun with Banks, but what I remember are those relationships that you built with students that did not go to school with Banks, that I'm guessing to this day, when you run into them in town, they at least say, "Hey, Coach Ty, how you doing?" Talk some about that time.
Yeah, I tell you what, Tim, just, I had an engineering degree from Auburn and did that till I was 40. And then I'd always wanted to coach. My dad had always coached, and I loved playing all the sports. So not coaching, I wanted to be involved, and I wanted to do it. And you allowed me to be a volunteer coach. Even before Banks, I was volunteering before Banks came along. And so, that had a big impact. So you in the recreation department had a big impact on me, and me changing careers at 40 and getting into coaching and teaching for 15 years. And, but what you said a minute ago, I still see a lot of those guys around town, not only ones that Banks went to school with, but the kids that Banks didn't go to school with. And when they see me, "Hey, Coach Ty, what's it going?" That means a lot. When they come up and speak to you, you hope you did something right. And even those that didn't graduate with Banks, went to other schools, they got some graduation invitations from them. And that means a lot. And Tim, to be honest with you, I was fortunate to be able to be a volunteer all-star coach in baseball and basketball for you. And it's really two demographics, the baseball team was one and basketball team was the other. And, we had a blast. Banks and I had a blast, and just cherished those friendships and times together with both teams, the basketball and the baseball. Now they win a lot of basketball championships. We never got there, but we sort of cracked the door open. We started winning some districts and all, and number one state, but they're doing it now. Y'all doing a great job. And I tell you what, just the success that I've had with my teams in baseball and basketball, I can credit a lot of that to our recreation department, you in the recreation department, and Dwight with the basketball, and Jeff Fussell out there with the baseball, and you with the Travelers. That's one thing I regret we talked about is the Travelers weren't there when Banks was that age, because we always watched. We always wanted to be a part. And you've done such a great job with the Travelers, not only the state of Georgia, but in the Southeast, and had a lot of players go on to play a lot of college baseball. But no, a lot of fun in the recreation department. And I know there's a place for travel ball. We played a little bit of it. But your community rec ball is where you build those bonds and friendships. And yes, there's a place for some travel ball, but you're missing out if you don't get part in your community and play with your recreation department and know the people and build those bonds with people in your community. And I appreciate that and look back fondly on those times.
We are talking today to Ty Kinslow. Ty has worn many hats here in Sumter County as a businessman, as a teacher and a coach, as a headmaster. And we'll talk a little later about his current career over at Magnolia Manor. Want to mention our first sponsor. That will be Mike Shadows and Carter's Fried Chicken. They're located at 206 Tripp Street. They offer breakfast, lunch, and supper. Mike and his staff have been feeding Southwest Georgia for more than 30 years. They offer daily lunch specials that include chicken, pork chops, and fresh vegetables, and they do it all at an affordable price. Carter's Fried Chicken is a proud 2025 sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast. Ty, a few years ago, you were a teacher for a little while and a coach, and then eventually came back to be the headmaster at Southland Academy. Talk to our audience a little bit about those times in your life.
I tell you, like I told you, I didn't get into coaching until I was 40, something I always wanted to do, and very fortunate that Wilkie Smith, who was the head of school at Southland Academy, asked me at 40 if I would be interested in coming and teaching some math classes. He knew, I guess, with my engineering degree, so I taught a lot of math classes out there, high school math, and then he asked me if I'd be interested in coaching, taking over the baseball program. And, as something I didn't want to look back on and regret, because I wanted to do it. And, we made some sacrifices, but it was well worth it. I'm so glad I did it. I wouldn't take anything for it. And got started out there at Southland, and a lot of those players came right through the Travelers program. And y'all won a lot of ball games with those, Jody Sellers and Michael Swain and Blaze Hargrove, and I could go on down the list. And I had a lot of great players. John Taylor was one of my players who was a very good player. But those guys, I had a lot of great players. We played in a championship. Unfortunately, we lost. I certainly wish we could have won one for those guys. They worked hard and were just great players and fine young men. And but then I did went ahead and was a headmaster at Southland for 8 years, and that some of the most rewarding times I've had. Now, some of the toughest times. I tell you what, it was a tough job, but it was really good. And that's what I say. Your most rewarding times are usually tough times when you had to go through adversity and battle adversity. And going back to my playing days and coaching days, I'd battled through some adversity. And but I'm so fortunate. I worked with a lot of great people, had a lot of great board members and teachers there. And I just treasure those times as a headmaster. And also while I was a headmaster, I got to coach the girls basketball team, and that's something I started. And I'd done that down in Albany with Deerfield, and they asked me if I'd be interested. And so I did it. I was able to coach my daughter. Also, I coached Banks, in high school, but also coached my daughter, Kathleen. And I tell you what a joy and a privilege it was to coach my two children. Now, it's very tough. People are always watching when you're coaching your child. So same thing that my dad told me 40 years ago. One day at the dinner table, he said, "Buddy, I got to get on you this much so I can get on everybody else that much. So when you're coaching your child, you got to be tough on them." But I think
one of those teams you coached, I know, won a state championship.
Yeah, we played in several state championships in baseball and football, but our girls won a state championship girls basketball team, and many of those girls came through your recreation department through basketball, and that prepared them getting ready for when I had them. Had Haley Warren and Holly McCain and Maddie Crisp, Reese Rowland, and then Riley Mitchell. She was an all-state player for 3 years. Her senior year was the player of the year in the GISA, AAA. Just a fantastic player. And she was the point guard as a 10th grader. Had another good 10th grader, Morgan Weaver, who came off the bench. We won that one right here at Southwestern in the Storm Dome. And they said that that was probably the largest crowd they'd ever had at that time. And a quick story there is they couldn't even hear me. And my dad, looked around to my dad, and Eric Israel, my other assistant coach, said, "They can't hear me." And my dad punched Eric and said, "Maybe that's why we're playing so good." So, anyway, but we had a good time coaching together and had a lot of fun and a lot of good talent.
Ty, now we mentioned that you're at Magnolia Manor, a little different role than you were used to for most of your career. Tell us a little bit about what you do there and how you're hoping to be a positive impact on the senior community there.
Right. Well, sort of totally different from being a head of school with young people. And then now I'm directly involved with our seniors. You know what, Tim? But it's all the same thing. They want to know how much you care about them, and it's all about service, being a servant leader, and building relationships. And you know, as a coach and running a school, you're hoping to impart wisdom on young people. And now, one of my favorite times of the week is on Wednesday mornings. I go over to our retirement center and meet with our chaplain, and usually about 20 to 25 residents come for our weekly prayer circle, or prayer at the pole. If it's nice outside, we meet by the flagpole, and me just gleaning some wisdom off them, you know, and just being there to share time with them. And, you know, they certainly love for us to come over and just, you know, share with them. And then I learn so much from them, and learn from just from their wisdom through their life, but also from a spiritual standpoint. And it's just a great time of being there. But I am over the communications department here, and we do everything from donor relations to grant writing to fundraising to we do all of our marketing and communications. We have 8 campuses across South Georgia, from Macon to Columbus to Buena Vista, Moultrie, then over here in Americus, then over on the coast at Richmond Hill, St. Mary's, Midway. So we're all across, and I'm responsible for all the communications there, and we have chaplains on all of our campuses. And that's one thing that I appreciate. And here at Magnolia Manor, we speak in a lot of churches when they ask us to, or would like us to, and I get to do that if our chaplains are booked up, or someone knows me and wants me to speak, then I'll come and speak, and we talk a little on Magnolia Manor, and then get to bring a message. So that's I really enjoy that and get a lot out of it.
Ty, since I've known you, I know you've always been a man of strong spiritual faith. And a few years ago, you went through a cancer battle. I know you've not quite gotten through all of that yet, but last we talked, you were cancer-free and having to get scans every so often. But tell me a little bit about that cancer battle and where you're at today in that fight.
Well, I tell you what, actually yesterday I was in Atlanta at Emory getting some CT scans. That was my 6-month checkup. I was going every 3 months, but now every 6 months. But everything looks good right now. I feel very fortunate and blessed. But in August of 2023, I had a knot on my neck and wasn't sure what it was. And, you know, I sort of laugh now and say probably the biggest miracle is this old guy taking a picture and getting on the portal and sending it to my doctor. You know, I'm not too technical literate, you know, but I said, come tell me about this. And so I sent it, and they said, you need to get in here. And so anyway, I was diagnosed with neck and throat cancer in 2019 and had to go through 35 radiation treatments once a day for 7 weeks. And every week I have a chemotherapy. So I had 7 chemotherapy treatments and 35 radiation, and I'm having to get a feeding tube. And you know, Tim, I look back now, and I'm not thankful for cancer, but I'm thankful for a lot of stuff that's come out of it. I grown my faith even more. Been able to share. I think the good Lord puts us through in situations, and He wants us to share. And I've been able to share with others and tell them about my battle and what I've been through. And it was tough. You know, I used to want my players to be mentally tough. Everybody wants the teams to be physically tough, but I want them to be mentally tough. And, you know, through this, I said, if I ever coached again, I left out the main toughness, and that's spiritually tough. And I used to say you can't be physically tough until you're mentally tough, because you can push yourself farther than you think you can go. And then one night I was sitting on the edge of the bed. It'd been rough, and after a chemotherapy session, a radiation therapy session that day, and I told my wife, Laura, I said, I just don't know how much more I can take of this. And she said, are you ready to quit? And she didn't know, but that upset me. I thought, ready to quit? What do you mean? And so, you know, I dug a little deeper, and I knew, you know, there's only one way I'm going to get through this, and that's being spiritually tough. And so if I had to do it over again, coach again, I should say, I always tell my players, we can't be physically tough until we're mentally tough, and you can't be mentally tough till you're spiritually tough, because you're going to want to quit at times physically and mentally. but spiritually, you got to stand strong in your faith, and the good Lord's got a plan for all of us.
Our final sponsor for today is the Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance Agency, located at 925 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Drop by and see Marty, Mary Lynn, or any of their fine staff, and let them discuss your insurance needs with you. You can reach them at 928-3686 or look them up on Facebook. They can even do the discount double check to ensure you're receiving all of the savings that are available to you. Thanks again to Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance for sponsoring this segment of the Integrity Sports Podcast. And remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Ty, I know recently you and a good friend of ours, Tony Smith, have started a podcast of your own, an audio podcast. Tell our viewers how they can listen to that and a little bit about it.
Yeah, I tell you, first, Tim, I see all your sponsors. I see Harper's around all the time, and they know they do a great job. But then, Mike Shadows, he was a senior when I was a freshman on the baseball team. He always has taken me under his wing, and Marty McDonald, I've always been great friends with him. And you got three fantastic sponsors there, and I appreciate what they all do for our community. But Tony, Tony and I, he's a little bit older than I am, and we were always in church together, and we work out here at Magnolia Manor, and Tony loves athletics and sports. I don't know anybody who's more knowledgeable about them than Tony, and we have a lot of fun out here. And one day he said, "Ty, I've always wanted to do a podcast, and I'd really like somebody to do it with me. Would you be interested?" I said, "Tony, I'll be glad to." I said, "You just let me know." He goes, "I'll handle all the stuff." He's the technical guy. He gets everything ready, and then he gives me a script and said, "Hey, get prepared for these questions." But we like to banter back and forth and have a lot of fun. And Tony's a true friend and a great man. And I love doing that with him. And we always said, we're going to do it till we're not having fun anymore. And we don't know how many people are listening and like listening, but we have a good time doing it. So it's a lot of fun. But, you can listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Amazon Music. But we really enjoy it. We enjoy the bantering back and forth. We're sort of like the odd couple, but we like to have fun, discuss different topics. We know one thing down here in South Georgia: you better have college football, something on there about college football every time if you want somebody to listen to you. So
that's right. Tony's always been a Georgia Tech fan, and you and I are a big Auburn fan.
Yep.
What I've always appreciated about Tony is you can have friendly banter, and he very rarely or never crosses the line.
No, that's exactly right. So we laugh a lot, and I think that's part of life. You got to enjoy life and have fun. And you said since the cancer, I always like to laugh and have fun, but I think I really seek the small things and enjoy in everyday things and appreciate every day a little bit more. And you need to laugh and have fun, but you got to be grounded in your faith.
Ty, the last question that I ask my guest each week has to do with their support network. And I've known most of yours, your parents, your wife, your kids, but I want to give you a chance to talk about it. You've been in some pretty big roles here in Sumter County. And I know one of those, especially when you were the headmaster, that's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. There's got to be folks behind the scenes that really lift you up and encourage you. Talk about those folks that are your support network.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, whether it's that through running a school or coaching. Those head coaches need a lot of support also, I'm telling you. And then battling through cancer. But, first of all, your family and my mom and dad. My dad's always been he was a strict disciplinarian. People just don't know that that's all the side they saw of him a lot of times as a headmaster. But I tell you, he's got a big heart, and he's always there for me. He's proud. My mom's always been a big cheerleader. She's a super encourager, and I still laugh. I don't know if it's a compliment now or not. I said, but she still thinks I could be president of the United States. That's a typical mom for you, isn't it?
That's right.
I don't know if that's a compliment anymore, but when through the cancer battle and all, my son and my daughter, wow, I could go on and on everything that happened during that time. And people think, wow, what a coincidence. And I said, no, that's not a coincidence. It's a God incident. God's got his hand in so many things. But, just friends. I mean, Tim, when I was a head baseball coach, it's tough, especially when you got a lot of talent. And you reached out to me several times during that, even through the cancer battle. But my high school coaches, but, some others that played an instrumental part in my life. Of course, my dad, especially being a coach, but, my other coaches, David Bailey, Dennis Hall. But, then I go and I think, about my pastors along the way. And now out at Central right now, Stephen Wright and I have always been good friends, but really they're during some tough times. And Brian Myers, the pastor out there. But I have so many friends. I mentioned a lot of them earlier, but friends from college also that have always been there. You've got to have a big support system, but especially when you're going through adversity, and adversity is coming. I don't care who you are, adversity is coming. You got to handle it. That's why I think through athletics and parents, you got to let your children face adversity. You got to teach them how to get through adversity, because so many times, even my children, I wanted to pamper them and protect them. And sometimes we, as parents, we want to say, well, if I'm not going to stand up for them, who is? And, you got to stand up to a certain point, but you've got to let them face adversity and help them get through adversity. And I had so many people who've been in my corner, and I've gleaned wisdom off of just to learn how to get through these tough times. I tell you what, I worked for Parker's Heating and Air for 13 years, and Roy had a lot of good mentors out there, but Roy Parker is one of the most godly men that I've ever been around. And wow, what quiet strength. And, people just bend over backwards and don't know how much some of these people do in our community that don't want the credit. But, and then as a headmaster, when I was a young headmaster, W.T. Henry, who not only my dad, who was a headmaster, but W.T. Henry, who was my boss down at Deerfield, Windsor, and also Graham Lowe. Those two and my dad were three headmasters that I always went to for advice when I was running a school. Very demanding now, a lot different than when they were, because now social media and just like here, a Zoom call, but, computers, phones, it's 24/7, 365. And it's a very demanding job. So I think it's very good when people encourage others, especially people in these demanding roles, because you get hit on so much. If whether it's a coach or whether it's a boss or whether it's a head of school, or no matter who it is, someone who's in one of these demanding roles, you need to let them know how good they're doing. You need to be an encourager. I think that's one of the best things that can ever be said about someone, is they're an encourager. And I hope, I used to tell people, I said, I walked the fine line, I was disciplined and making sure people did right, but I want to encourage my players and my students also. Still hope I'm doing that today with people I work with.
Well, Ty, I always enjoy getting to spend time with you. When we started this program over 2 years ago, it was to highlight athletes, coaches, and sports personalities in our area that are making a positive impact, and not just making a positive impact, but doing it with integrity. And you have certainly done that, and I appreciate the influence that you've had on your community. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Tim. I certainly appreciate it, and honored to be here. And I certainly appreciate what you do in our community, this podcast, but especially through our community, through our recreation department. Thank you for having me.
And we want to thank all of you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. Thanks again to our sponsors, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal, Carter's Fried Chicken, and Marty McDonald State Farm. Please remember to like and share this video with your friends. And for my friend, Ty Kinslow, I'm Tim Estes. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody.